Welcome to our fun little study group for PP 5361 Theory and Management of Public Service Organizations. These are the readings from the required text, Managing Human Behavior in Public and Nonprofit Organizations, Chapter 11.
It is wonderful to be back. And today we're wading into waters that I think most people spend their entire professional lives trying to swim away from as fast as possible.
You can say that again. We are tackling managing conflict. And I have to be honest with you, just reading the title gave me a little bit of anxiety.
It does for most people.
I think for most of us, certainly for me, the idea of conflict in the workplace or anywhere really
Yeah.
feels toxic. It feels stressful. It feels like a sign that something has gone terribly, terribly wrong.
It's a very natural reaction. I mean, we are socially conditioned from a very young age to view harmony as the ultimate goal and conflict as a failure of the system.
Yeah, exactly. If there's friction, the machine must be broken.
But if there's one thing I want us to take away from this deep dive, it is that a conflict-free workplace might actually be more dangerous than a chaotic one.
That is a bold opener. I mean, that sounds completely counterintuitive. Why would peace and quiet be a trap? I love peace and quiet.
Because in an organization, silence often masks decay. But before we get to the why and the systemic danger of silence, let's set the stage with a really interesting perspective from the reading. It shows just how much our understanding has shifted.
Okay.
There was this quote from Barbara Mail, who is a director at the U.S. Department of Energy. She completely dismantled the old cliche of walking a mile in their shoes.
Right. The old advice we've all heard since kindergarten. If you have a problem with someone, just imagine how they feel. Empathize. It's supposed to be the golden ticket to peace.
And Barbara Mail basically argues that's just too simple. It's insufficient.
It's not enough.
Not even close. It's not enough to just imagine how someone feels in a vacuum or to project your own feelings onto them. You have to understand the entire ecosystem of the conflict.
Yeah.
She asks these really penetrating questions like, what specific needs are being answered by this behavior?
Well, that's interesting.
What needs will be left unsatisfied if we fix this? Is this conflict about a minor annoyance, or is it about psychological intent and justice?
It's the justice part that hit me. We tend to think conflict is transactional, like, I want the stapler, you have the stapler. But she's saying it's usually, I want the stapler, and the fact that you took it without asking feels like a moral violation of my status and respect.
Exactly. It connects conflict to our deepest drivers: motivation, perception, deep-seated values. It raises the stakes immediately.
And we can't just pretend this is a rare thing that happens.
Not at all. The data cited in the text shows that managers spend approximately 30 to 40% of their workday dealing with some form of conflict.
30 to 40%, that is nearly half the week. That is huge. That's essentially spending Monday and Tuesday just refereeing fights.
It's massive.
Oh.
And that's why the mindset shift is so critical. If you are a manager, conflict isn't an interruption of your work.
It is your work.
It is the job. It's not an anomaly you clean up so you can get back to the real job.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to shift your mindset from conflict elimination, which is frankly impossible and undesirable, to conflict management.
Okay, let's unpack the history a bit, because we haven't always thought about conflict this way. The text outlines this fascinating evolution of thought. It wasn't always embrace the chaos. Back in the day, say pre-1940s, the traditionalist view was pretty harsh.
Oh, it was very authoritarian. The traditionalist view essentially said conflict is destructive, period, full stop. It is a sign that the machine is malfunctioning.
And it was usually seen as a personal problem.
A personality flaw in the troublemaker.
Yeah.
Yes. If you disagreed with the boss or if you had a friction point with a colleague, you weren't an innovator or a critical thinker.
You were
You were a defect. And the manager's job was simple: eliminate the conflict. Scrub it out. This often meant firing or punishing the person who started it. It was a hygiene model. You keep the surface clean, even if the structure underneath is rotting.
the shut up and get back to work method. I think some of us have still had bosses who subscribe to this 1940s model.
Unfortunately, yes. But then, in the 1950s, we moved into the behaviorist view. This was a bit more resigned, a bit more realistic. They basically said, look, as long as you have humans, deadlines, and limited resources, you're going to have conflict. It's inevitable.
So stop trying to kill it. Just learn to live with it, like bad weather or traffic. Can't stop the rain, so just buy an umbrella.
Right. Don't eliminate it, accept it. Maybe manage the fallout. But where we are now, the modern view, or the systems theory perspective, is a radical jump. It says conflict isn't just inevitable.
It's essential.
It is essential.
Essential, that's such a strong word. Not just tolerable, but required.
It is the only word that fits. Systems theory argues that conflict is the primary defense against stagnation and entropy.
Entropy, that's a physics term, right? Things just sort of falling apart.
It's the tendency of any closed system to move toward disorder and low energy. Think of a closed room with no ventilation. The air gets stale. Without conflict, an organization stops adapting. It stops growing.
It becomes a closed loop.
Exactly. A closed loop where everyone agrees, everyone smiles, and the company slowly drives off a cliff because no one wanted to mention the bridge was out.
This reminds me of that section on the Too Nice trap. Saj Nicole Joni and Damon Beyer found that a harmonious workplace can actually be the worst thing for a business.
It is the complacency trap. If everyone is getting along perfectly, it usually means people are holding back. They aren't rocking the boat.
And if no one rocks the boat,
The organization cannot adapt to chaos or change. You end up with low energy and a fear of political fallout. You prioritize being nice over being effective. You prioritize the social web over the mission.
there was that incredible advice from Peter Drucker, the management guru. I've heard a lot of Drucker quotes, but this one really surprised me. He basically said if you go into a meeting and everyone agrees on a decision immediately, you should refuse to sign off on it.
Yes. He advised effective presidents and leaders to create disagreement if it didn't already exist.
Create it.
He believed you cannot find the truth without disparate views rubbing against each other. Conflict mobilizes information. It forces you to test your assumptions. If everyone says yes, no one has checked the blind spots.
So if you're a manager and your team is just nodding along with everything you say, you shouldn't be happy. You shouldn't be thinking, wow, I'm a great leader. They love my ideas.
You should be terrified because it means you aren't getting the full picture. You are operating in an echo chamber, and echo chambers are fragile. One stray rock shatters the whole thing.
Okay, so we've established that conflict is necessary. It's the immune system of the organization fighting off bad ideas. But let's be real, it still feels awful when it happens. It raises our blood pressure. And to manage it effectively, we have to understand where it comes from. The text breaks this down into 4 main sources, referencing Whetten and Cameron.
Right. And identifying which source you're dealing with is half the battle. Because how you solve the conflict depends entirely on what sparked it. You don't use a fire extinguisher on a flood.
So the first one is personal differences. This is the stuff that feels the most volatile. Personality clashes, cultural differences, different backgrounds.
These are the hardest to resolve because they often feel like moral battles. It's not about data, it's about identity. The text gives a really heavy example. A disagreement over funding a clinic that provides abortions.
Yeah, that is about as heavy as it gets in public administration.
Right. If you have 2 employees on opposite sides of that issue, that is not a debate about a budget line item. That is a clash of fundamental moral values.
One person sees healthcare access, the other sees a moral crime.
And when conflict is rooted in personal values, you can't just negotiate it away or split the difference.
You can't say, okay, we'll be 50% moral today.
Exactly. So personal differences require a very high level of emotional intelligence to manage. Because you aren't fixing the disagreement, you are managing the coexistence of the people who disagree. You have to create a container where they can work together despite the chasm between them.
Then there's the second source, information deficiencies. This one is actually my favorite because it's so tragic, but also so fixable.
This is the classic communication gap. I didn't know you needed that report by Tuesday. I thought you were emailing the client. It's the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing scenario.
The example they gave in the text was hilarious in a sad way. There was a garbage collection unit where the employees were convinced that the only way to get a promotion was to be on the company bowling team.
Right. Can you just imagine the resentment building up there?
You have these guys busting their backs thinking, it doesn't matter how hard I work, I'm not a bowler. And it wasn't true.
Not even remotely.
But because management never explained how promotions actually worked, the staff filled in the blanks with this conspiracy theory about bowling.
And that's the tragedy of information deficiencies. The conflict is real, the anger is real, the resentment is real, but the cause is a phantom. It's a mirage.
And the fix is simple, just communicate.
It is. Once you provide the correct info, the conflict often evaporates. But until you do, it can destroy morale just as effectively as a real injustice. It teaches us that in the absence of information, people invent stories, and usually those stories are negative.
The third source is role incompatibility. This sounds like bad organizational design.
It is structural. It's when you have a job that doesn't fit the person, or more commonly, when 2 roles are inherently at odds with each other. The classic example is a production manager versus a quality control manager.
Right. The production manager is paid to get units out the door fast. Their bonus depends on speed.
And the quality control manager is paid to stop the line and find errors. Their bonus depends on catching mistakes. They are going to fight.
It's built into the system.
Not because they dislike each other personally, but because their goals are mutually exclusive. If the production manager wins, the quality manager feels they failed, and vice versa. They're designed to collide.
And finally, environmental stress. This is the external pressure cooker.
Scarcity, downsizing, uncertainty. When the pie gets smaller, people start fighting for the crumbs. The text mentions right-sizing, which is just a corporate euphemism for layoffs.
And that creates massive anxiety.
A frustration conflict. When people are scared for their jobs, they become territorial, they hoard information, they fight over resources they used to share. It turns colleagues into competitors for survival.
Now, speaking of where conflict comes from, there is this term I had never heard before, mission mirroring.
Oh, this is a fascinating concept by David Allen. It's almost ironic. It happens when an organization internally develops the exact same conflicts it fights externally.
Yeah, the examples were wild, like an anti-ageism group that gets accused of age discrimination in its own hiring.
Or a conflict resolution unit that has constant internal fighting. Or a labor rights group that treats its own staff poorly. It's bizarre.
Why does that happen? You'd think they, of all people, would know better. They are the experts in that field.
It seems to be a kind of psychological absorption. It's like the organization absorbs the stress of its mission. If you spend all day fighting ageism, that topic becomes the lens through which you see everything. You become hypersensitive to it.
Or maybe you just get burned out.
That's another theory. You become so focused on the external fight that you justify your own internal behaviors as necessary for the cause. You burn out your empathy on the cause and have none left for your coworkers.
Wow. It implies that you have to be extra vigilant about your internal culture when your external mission is charged with conflict. It's like the cobbler's children having no shoes, but for organizational dysfunction.
Exactly. You become what you fight. It's a huge warning to anyone in mission-driven work to look in the mirror.
Before we get into the psychology of why we act like jerks during conflict, we should probably touch on the levels of conflict. It's not just person to person.
No, it scales. It starts with intrapersonal. That's the war inside your own head.
Career versus family.
Ambition versus ethics. Do I speak up and risk my job, or stay silent and lose my self-respect?
That's usually the root of the stress we bring to work. We are fighting ourselves before we even clock in.
Precisely. Then you have interpersonal, which is between people. That's standard argument. Then intergroup, which is conflict within a team.
And that's where you want enough conflict to prevent groupthink, but not so much that the team shatters.
A delicate balance. And finally, intergroup, which is department versus department.
Like the police department fighting the Downtown Business Association for the same budget surplus. We'll get to that case study later.
We will. That's a classic intergroup battle over resources.
So let's get inside our heads. Why do we act the way we do when conflict starts? The text brought up attribution theory, which basically sounds to me like the blame game, but with a PhD.
It is the blame game, but with a specific psychological twist. Attribution theory explains how we assign cause to behavior. And the fundamental error we make is that we judge ourselves by our circumstances, but we judge others by their character.
Walk me through an example of this.
Okay. Let's say I yell at you in a meeting. Afterwards, how do I explain that to myself? I tell myself, I yelled because I'm under so much stress. The deadline is tomorrow, my computer crashed, and I didn't sleep. I attribute my behavior to my situation.
Right. You're a good person having a bad day. The context forced you to yell. You are the victim of circumstance.
Exactly. I let myself off the hook. But now, flip it. If you yell at me in a meeting, I don't see your deadline. I don't see your computer crash. I just see you yelling.
So you just think I'm a jerk.
I conclude,
Yeah.
you yell because you are a mean-spirited, aggressive person who lacks self-control. I attribute your behavior to your character.
So I'm not a victim of circumstance. I'm just a bad person.
Consistently. We over-attribute responsibility to the other person's personality flaws, and that makes conflict so sticky.
How so?
Because if I believe you yelled because of a deadline, we can fix the deadline. But if I believe you yelled because you are a bad person, there is no fix for that. Now I'm fighting against you, not the issue. I am crusading against your evil nature.
That explains so much office politics. He's just difficult, or she's just crazy. We label to avoid understanding.
It's a cognitive shortcut.
That pairs well with social exchange theory. This one felt a bit cold, honestly. It treats relationships like a math equation.
It is a bit clinical, but it's pretty accurate. It views relationships as rewards minus costs. Every interaction has a cost: emotional energy, time, frustration, and have a reward: fun, assistance, status, money.
And conflict happens when the math stops working.
Right. Conflict happens when the costs start to outweigh the rewards. If you are high maintenance, maybe you complain a lot, but you bring in huge sales numbers, which is the reward. I tolerate you. The equation balances. But if your sales drop,
Suddenly your complaining isn't quirky anymore, it's a conflict.
suddenly your personality becomes a problem because I'm operating at a loss. It explains why we tolerate bad behavior from high performers and why we lose patience so quickly with low performers.
I want to pivot to something that really challenged my worldview, the Platinum Rule. We all grew up with the Golden Rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. It's the bedrock of decency. But the text says, maybe not.
It says it's insufficient, which sounds like heresy, I know. But think about it. The Golden Rule assumes everyone is like you. It assumes your preferences are universal.
How do you mean?
Well, if I am an extreme extrovert who loves public praise, and I treat you, a shy introvert who hates the spotlight, the way I want to be treated, what happens?
Oh, no.
I drag you on stage at the company party to sing happy birthday. I think I'm being nice. I think I'm giving you a gift.
And I am mortified. I'm hiding under the table. I hate you for it.
Exactly. I treated you how I wanted to be treated, and I made you miserable. The Golden Rule is actually a bit narcissistic. It centers my preferences as the standard for the world.
Ooh. That's a good point. So what is the Platinum Rule?
The Platinum Rule says, treat others how they wish to be treated. It shifts the center of gravity to the other person. It requires empathy and research. You have to actually know what they want. You can't just guess based on your own desires.
And the text mentioned Tinsley's research on cultural differences here, which really proves why the Platinum Rule is necessary.
Yes. It showed that different cultures have different default settings for conflict. For example, the research suggested that in a Japanese business context, they might use power strategies, but they cloak them to avoid breaking social harmony. The face-preserving dignity is very important.
So you don't call someone out publicly.
Never. Whereas in Germany,
It's all about the rules, right?
the tendency found was toward regulation and rules.
Yeah.
What does the handbook say? What's the official procedure? That is the path to resolution. It's structural.
And us Americans.
We tend to use interest strategies. What's in it for me? What's in it for you? We are very transactional and pragmatic.
So if an American tries to use what's in it for me on a colleague who values what does the rule book say, they're going to talk past each other completely.
They're playing two different games. The American sounds corrupt to the German. The German sounds bureaucratic to the American. That's why you need the Platinum Rule. You have to learn the other person's game.
Speaking of different games, we have to talk about the smartphone debate. This section on generational conflict made me laugh because I have lived it on both sides.
The research by Cruz and Bradbury.
Yes, it highlights a massive divide. Millennials and Gen Z, I assume, are 3 times more likely to think checking a phone in a meeting is totally fine.
It's a huge friction point.
Mm-hmm.
To a younger worker, it's multitasking. It's efficiency. They think, I'm checking the data we're talking about, or I'm answering a client so I don't have to do it later. It's a tool.
It's a second brain. But to someone over 40,
It's a mortal insult.
it really is. I've seen older managers literally stop a meeting because someone glanced at a screen.
It is viewed as a lack of respect, a lack of power, and a lack of self-awareness. The text used the phrase, modern-day Pavlovian dog.
Ouch. That's harsh.
That is how the older generation sees it, though. The phone buzzes, you look, it signals the person on this screen is more important than the person in this room. That is a deep source of unspoken conflict in modern meetings. It's not about the phone, it's about attention and hierarchy.
Okay, here is where it gets really interesting and a little terrifying. We are going to talk about the escalation model.
Friedrich Lassel's model. This is one of the most important frameworks in the entire book.
This describes the descent into hell. It shows how a conflict goes from, hey, we disagree, to, I will destroy myself just to watch you burn.
It's a 9-stage model grouped into 3 phases. And the scary thing is, gravity pulls you down. It takes effort to stop, but no effort to fall. Understanding where you are on this ladder is crucial because the further you go down, the harder it is to climb back up.
Let's walk through the phases slowly because I want you to really visualize this. Phase 1 is win-win to win-lose. This is stages 1 through 3.
Stage 1 is hardening. There's tension. Our points of view are clashing. But we are still talking. We still believe we can resolve this through discussion. It's just stiff. We are becoming rigid in our positions.
Then we slip into stage 2, debates and polemics.
Now it gets verbal. We start debating to win points, not to solve the problem. I'm using logic to trap you. I care about how I look to the audience. It's about appearances and ego. I want to look smart and make you look confused.
And stage 3, actions rather than words.
This is the tipping point. Trust is gone. I stop telling you what I'm to do. I just do it. I view you as a competitor. I might block your access to information without telling you. Communication breaks down. I act unilaterally to secure my position.
Okay, that's bad, but it's still manageable. A good manager can step in there. But then we cross the threshold into phase 2, lees lose. Stages 4 through 6, this is where it gets dark.
Stage 4 is images and coalitions. This is a huge shift. This is where I stop talking to you and start recruiting allies.
The meeting after the meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I go to the break room and say, can you believe what he did? I'm building an army. And more importantly, it's no longer about the issue. It's about your character. I'm painting an image of you as the enemy. I am stereotyping you.
Then stage 5 is loss of face.
This is a moral attack. I'm not just saying you're wrong. I'm saying you're corrupt. I want to unmask you publicly. I want to humiliate you so you lose your standing in the group. I am attacking your dignity.
Which leads to stage 6, strategies of threats.
Ultimatums. If you don't do X, I will do Y. Fear and rage take over. We are now trying to force the other person to submit. Rationality is leaving the building. We are locking ourselves into positions we can't back down from.
And then phase 3, total destruction. This sounds like a movie villain plot.
It is where we leave humanity behind. Stage 7 is limited destructive blows. I don't see you as human anymore. You are an object to be removed. My goal is just to hurt you, even if it hurts me a little. I will sabotage the project if it makes you look bad.
Stage 8, fragmentation.
Now I'm trying to destroy your support system. I want to shatter your ability to function. I'm trying to get you fired, get your team disbanded, ruin your career. I want to isolate you completely.
And finally, stage 9, the most metal name for a management theory ever. Together into the abyss.
This is the most dangerous stage. At stage 9, self-preservation stops mattering. I don't care if I get fired. I don't care if the company goes bankrupt. I don't care if I ruin my professional reputation.
As long as I take you down with me.
As long as I take you down with me, it's a win.
That is terrifying. It's a suicide pact.
It is. And we see it in divorces. We see it in civil wars. And yes, we see it in office politics, where two executives destroy a department because they refuse to back down. They would rather burn the village than let the other person be mayor.
So the lesson here is, if you're a manager and you see two employees recruiting coalitions, that's stage 4, you have to intervene immediately. Because stage 9 is waiting at the bottom of the stairs.
Exactly. You cannot let it slide. Once they cross into phase 2, they rarely solve it themselves. They need a mediator.
So how do we stop the slide? Let's talk about section 5, strategies for resolution. The text outlines the classic Thomas Kilmann styles.
Right. These are based on 2 axes. Assertiveness, which is caring about your own needs, and cooperation, which is caring about their needs.
Let's run through them quickly. Competition is high assertiveness, low cooperation. I win, you lose.
Useful in an emergency when you need a quick decision, but it's terrible for long-term relationships. It breeds a lot of resentment.
And collaboration, high assertiveness, high cooperation, win-win.
That's the gold standard. But it takes a lot of time and energy. You can't collaborate on every paperclip order. It's for the big, important issues.
Avoidance, low and low.
I'm just going to hide. Sometimes that's valid if the issue is trivial or emotions are too high, but usually it just lets the problem fester.
Accommodation, low assertiveness, high cooperation.
Whatever you say, dear. You give in to build credit or preserve the peace. But if you do it too much, you become a doormat. People will walk all over you.
And finally, compromise.
The text calls this the Band-Aid. Both sides give up something. It's practical, but it often leaves everyone a little unsatisfied. It's the split the difference approach.
But the real heavy hitter here, the one the text really wants us to learn, is principled negotiation from the Harvard Negotiation Project. This feels like the adult way to handle things.
It is the alternative to what we call positional bargaining. Positional bargaining is just haggling. I say $100, you say $50, we meet at $75. It's adversarial by nature.
So principled negotiation changes the game entirely.
It does. It has 4 pillars.
Let's run through them. Pillar 1, people.
Separate the people from the problem. This is so crucial. You have to be hard on the problem, but soft on the people. It means attacking the issue without attacking the person's self-worth.
And it also means letting them vent, right?
Yes. Allow people to let off steam. If someone is screaming, don't react to the scream. React to the underlying emotion. Let them get it out. Validation is a powerful de-escalator.
Pillar 2, interests. Focus on interests, not positions. This is the orange example, right?
A classic. Two sisters are fighting over the last orange in the house.
Yeah.
That is their position. I want the orange. If they compromise, they cut it in half.
Which seems fair on the surface.
It seems fair. But then one sister peels her half, throws away the fruit, and uses the peel to bake a cake. The other sister eats her fruit and throws away the peel.
Oh, so they both threw away half the value. They didn't get everything they could have.
Exactly. Because they argued over the position, which was the orange, instead of the interest, which is why they wanted it.
Right.
One wanted the juice, the other wanted the zest. Their interests were entirely compatible. They both could have had 100% of what they wanted.
That is such a light bulb moment. You have to ask why until you find the real need.
Always ask why. A position is a demand. An interest is a need. You can usually satisfy a need in multiple ways. A position usually has only one way.
Pillar 3, options.
Generate variety before deciding. Brainstorm. Most negotiations get stuck because people think there's only one solution, usually my way. You need to create a menu of options. What if we did this? What if we tried that? The more options you have, the less you fight over one specific path.
And pillar 4, criteria.
Insist on objective standards. Don't make it a battle of wills. Use market value. Use the law. Use precedent. What is the fair standard here? If we disagree on the price of the car, let's look at the Blue Book. Now, we aren't fighting each other. We are consulting a standard. It depersonalizes the conflict.
The text also highlighted some common mistakes we make when negotiating. The fixed pie myth is a big one.
That's assuming there's only so much to go around, like the orange. If you assume the pie is fixed, you fight for every slice. It becomes a zero-sum game. If you assume the pie can be expanded, maybe we can bake a second pie. Maybe we can trade pie for cake.
Yeah.
You collaborate.
And the winner's curse. I love this one because it's so counterintuitive.
This happens when you make a high offer or a tough demand, and the other person says yes immediately.
And instead of being happy, you immediately feel sick.
You feel cheated. You think, I could have done better. What do they know that I don't? Is the car broken? It's a great example of how our psychology determines our satisfaction, not the actual outcome. We want the struggle.
Let's apply this to some case studies to see how it works in the wild. The text gave us Parks and Recreation, not the sitcom, unfortunately.
No, but a classic public administration problem. You have Pace County, 5 older veteran park workers versus a young new supervisor.
And the supervisor is giving his young friends the good parts to maintain, the ones with new equipment and nice terrain, and the older guys get the tough, overgrown parks.
The older workers are furious. They skip the chain of command and go straight to the county manager. They are threatening to unionize or sue for age discrimination.
So, applying principled negotiation here, what is the position of the older workers?
Their position is, we want the good parks.
And the position of the young supervisor is probably, I have the right to assign work as I see fit.
If they fight on positions, it's a war. The manager has to override one of them. But let's look for the interest. Why do the older workers want the good parks?
Well, fairness for one, respect for their seniority,
Yeah.
and maybe, since they are older, a lighter physical workload. The tough parks are harder on their backs.
Exactly. And what is the supervisor's interest? Maybe he wants to reward his friends, sure, but maybe he also wants efficiency. Maybe he thinks the young guys are faster and better suited for the tough work.
So if the county manager focuses on the interest, how do we ensure fair workloads and respect for seniority? They might find a totally different solution.
Maybe the older workers act as mentors on the good parks. Maybe they rotate parks so no one is stuck with the bad ones all the time. Maybe the county buys better equipment for the bad parks to make them easier.
You're moving away from, I want parquet, to, I want to feel respected and not physically broken.
Exactly. That expands the pie. There are more solutions.
Then there was the budget surplus case. A small city has a $1 million surplus. 2 groups want it. The police want a career criminal unit to track repeat offenders.
And the Downtown Business Association wants beautification bricks, sidewalks, planters, banners.
A classic resource battle. The fixed pie trap is wide open here. If you give $500,000 to each, Neely project might work. You might end up with half a police unit and half a sidewalk.
A total waste of money. So how do you solve it? Using the Harvard method.
You have to look for the shared interest. What do they both really want?
They both want a better city, right?
More specifically, they probably both want economic vitality and safety.
Okay, so does beautification reduce crime?
Actually, yes, there's the broken windows theory. Nicer, cleaner environments tend to deter crime.
And does a police unit help businesses?
Of course, by making customers feel safe enough to shop downtown.
So the conflict is an illusion. Their interests are aligned. Maybe the solution is a joint project. Safe and beautiful streets.
Maybe the beautification involves better lighting, which helps the police. Maybe the police unit focuses specifically on the downtown corridor that's being beautified.
Exactly. You look for the synergy rather than splitting the baby. You stop fighting over the dollar and start fighting for the shared goal.
This all circles back to the idea that conflict isn't the enemy. It's the raw material for a better solution.
That's the takeaway. Conflict is information. It's energy. It's heat. If you suppress it, it explodes. If you manage it, it drives the engine.
We've covered a lot today. From the history of conflict, from fire the troublemaker to conflict is essential, to the terrifying into the abyss model, to the platinum rule.
We have. It's a dense chapter, but it's really the toolkit for survival in any organization.
And if I can leave you, the listener, with one thought, it goes back to that escalation model.
Please.
We talked about stage 9, together into the abyss. It's easy to see that in other people. It's easy to say, look at those crazy politicians or look at that dysfunction in the other department. But I want to ask you to look in the mirror.
That's the hard part, isn't it?
In your own life or your organization, is there a conflict right now where you are so focused on winning or so focused on proving the other person is morally corrupt that you have stopped caring about the damage you are doing to yourself?
Are you driving the car off the cliff just to make sure the passenger gets hurt?
Exactly. Because once you cross that line, it's not management anymore. It's tragedy. And no project, no budget surplus, and no orange is worth the abyss.
A heavy but necessary question to end on.
Thank you for guiding us through the minefield today.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, good luck with your conflicts this week. Don't avoid them. Manage them. We'll see you in the next study group.